I'd planned to finally reveal at my husband's company's grand launch event that I was the heiress to Concord Group's vast fortune, and to announce our relationship to the entire world. But just as I stepped onto the executive floor lobby, I accidentally overheard him telling a colleague, "She's so naive. She has no idea what's really going on." It was right then that I saw them. The two of them nestled together on the sofa in his private office. "She's so naive. She has no idea what's really going on." Robert Vance's voice drifted out from the slightly ajar door of his office, freezing me in place in the hallway of quantum dynamics. The company is located in Boston's Harbor Point development, and I'd made a special trip here ahead of time, hoping to surprise him before the event even began. I was wearing the anniversary gift he'd given me, a sapphire blue dress, and clutching the speech in my hand so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The words on the paper revealed my greatest secret. I wasn't just the wife he deeply loved. I was also the heiress to the Concord Group, the very same organization that had been quietly funding his dreams all these years. Dr. Clara Jennings's low, overly intimate laugh followed close behind. "How long do you plan to keep playing this little housekeeping game with her?" Through the narrow crack in the door, I saw them sitting on that leather sofa, the one I'd helped him pick out last spring. Her neatly manicured fingers traced circles on his chest, while he idly played with her hair. Though both were dressed impeccably, their posture made it painfully clear that this wasn't their first clandestine rendezvous. My knees suddenly gave way, and I quickly leaned against the wall, grateful for the cold surface that offered me just a sliver of support. The speech in my hand had been crumpled into a ball by the fist I'd unconsciously clenched. 6 years, 6 whole years. I'd been pretending to be just an ordinary freelance designer, hiding my true heritage, all to make sure he loved the real me. And this is how I'm rewarded. "Just wait until after tonight's press conference," Rob said, his hand sliding down to Clara's back. "As soon as the funds are in place, I'll kick off the divorce proceedings. The prenuptial agreement she made me sign will protect everything I've built." Everything he'd built. All of it had been funded by my money. For years, I'd anonymously invested through shell companies, rescuing his fledgling startup from the brink of bankruptcy. Later, when he nearly drove the company to ruin due to poor management, it was again I who stepped in to save the day. The irony left a bitter taste in my mouth. "What about her family?" Clara asked. "Isn't she from a well-to-do background?" Rob burst into laughter. His laugh made my stomach churn. "Her grandmother left her some jewelry hidden in the kitchen drawer, thinking I wouldn't find out. It's probably worth only a few $1,000 at most. She pretends to be a simple, free-spirited designer, but I've seen right through her long ago. She's got this insatiable craving for luxury goods. Her taste is as refined as champagne, yet all she's got in her pocket is enough for beer. That's exactly why I insisted on a prenuptial agreement to protect my assets." The kitchen drawer he was talking about held my Winston watch, Bulgari earrings, and the autumnest jewelry my father had left me, items whose combined value exceeded his entire company's quarterly revenue. I'd stashed them among mismatched spoons and expired coupons, simply because I wanted him to love me for who I am, not the Concord Group fortune I'd inherited from my father, a fortune that had remained untouched for years. "You're really wicked," Clara said, yet her tone was laced with pure fascination. "What time should I come find you for the press conference?" 7:30. "I'll introduce you to the board and appoint you senior research director." This position, he told me earlier, was meant for Scott, the guy who worked out of the Washington, D.C. office. My hand once again found support against the wall, needing something to steady my unsteady body. Scott didn't exist at all. Last week, when he'd mentioned that name, I'd already felt a flicker of suspicion, but he'd brushed it off, assuring me that HR would take care of everything. "Your wife won't suspect a thing, Savannah," he called me by name, his tone as if I were some disgusting little creature. "She'll be too busy playing the perfect helpmate. She loves that role, standing by my side, smiling for photos, pretending she understands everything we're up to here. I even bought her that blue dress specially for tonight. She'll definitely wear it because she's always been so obedient to me. That blue dress hanging in our closet, he suddenly gave it to me last month, saying the color perfectly matched my eyes. At the time, I was deeply touched by his thoughtfulness. Now I finally realized it was just another prop in his little show. My bag suddenly started vibrating. It was a text from Chloe, my only friend, who also knows about the secret of my inheritance. Are you really going to tell him tonight? Think twice. I've got this weird feeling something's not right. If only she could know how spot on her intuition really is. I heard some movement coming from the office. They're about to come out. I forced myself to take a step forward. The heels of my shoes clicked against the marble floor as I headed toward the stairwell. Just minutes ago, I'd been practicing my speech in the car. Rob, there's something I want to tell you. I'm not the kind of person you think I am. Actually, I'm Savannah Wells. I've always been rooting for your dreams, because I believe in you, because I love you. I'd imagined countless times what his expression would look like when he heard those words. But now, these very same words felt like poison lodged in my throat. The stairwell door clicked shut behind me, a sound both resolute and final. My phone buzzed. Rob's photo popped up on the screen, the one we'd taken on our wedding day. Hey, babe, he said when I answered, his voice warm and familiar. Just wanted to make sure you're coming tonight, right? Did you wear that blue dress? Of course, I found myself saying, my voice surprisingly calm. Great, he replied. After the press conference, I've got a huge surprise for you. A gift that'll change our lives forever. I can't wait, I told him. This time, I meant it, but not in the way he'd expected at all. A few days later, as I was pretending to design a logo for a fictional client, Senator David Pierce called. The law firm of Pierce Sterling only ever gets in touch with me when something really big is at stake. Savannah, Senator Pierce got straight to the point. You've got to come here right away. There are some documents you need to sign before the end of the day. Otherwise, your father's pharmaceutical patent will face a 7-figure tax penalty. I glanced at the clock. Rob wouldn't be home until midnight, as usual, but I still had to come up with an excuse to leave. How long will this take? At least 2 hours. These are complicated transfer procedures involving European assets, and if we don't submit the documents by the end of the month, the tax authorities will assume you've waived part of your inheritance rights. My inheritance, the multi-billion-dollar empire that Rob thought was nothing more than a few pieces of jewelry left by Grandma. The pharmaceutical empire he knew nothing about had been quietly funding his dreams all along, through meticulously planned, anonymous investments. I'll be there in 40 minutes, I told Senator Pierce, already starting to concoct a story in case Rob asked about it. A demanding client urgently needed the design proposal. This was just another run-of-the-mill lie in my carefully constructed career facade. Pierce Sterling law firm occupied 3 floors of an old, stately building with a grand, historic vibe. Senator Pierce was already waiting in his office, with documents spread out on the desk, ready for me to sign. Each document I signed marked another step toward officially taking over a piece of my father's empire. Your father would be so proud of you, he said as I signed the 20th document. He always knew you'd claim your inheritance at exactly the right moment. A few hours later, I bought Rob's favorite coffee as a surprise, and as I stepped into the quantum dynamics lobby, I ran straight into Dr. Clara Jennings, who seemed to be waiting specifically for me. Savannah, what a coincidence running into you here, she said, her voice warm as she greeted me. The luxurious scent of perfume wafting from her body was exactly the same lingering aroma that had clung to Rob's coat last week. I don't think we've actually met before, I replied casually, though deep down I knew full well. She was the very woman who'd been nestled in my husband's arms just days ago, tracing circles with her fingers on his chest, the senior research director Rob had been planning to promote. But somehow, it feels like I've known you forever, she said with a smile, one that carried just a hint of deliberate charm. Rob talks about you all the time, how loyal and supportive you are. She paused briefly, her gaze sweeping over my simple dress from Marshall's and my imitation handbag. With your husband so busy at work, I'm sure it can't be easy for you, she added, lightly patting my arm. He's really dedicated to his job, I replied softly. Oh, absolutely, she chimed in. We stayed up until 3 o'clock last night planning the strategy for the launch event. Your husband really has boundless energy. The coffee in my hand suddenly felt heavy. Just 11 o'clock, and he'd texted me earlier saying he'd be home soon. Another lie. I guess I'd better go, I said, heading toward the elevator. That dress looks really lovely, she called out behind me. I never would have guessed Marshall's department store had such a gem. She turned around with confidence and walked away. Her posture exuded the air of a winner in this little game. That evening, what had started as a surprise ended up feeling like an even bigger blow. Rob's mother, Beverly Vance, had shown up unannounced, using a spare key. At that moment, I was arranging the Limoges porcelain my grandmother had left behind, a set I'd told Rob I'd found at an estate auction. "Savannah, dear," Beverly said, yet her tone carried absolutely no warmth or affection. "I just happened to be in the neighborhood." She lived on Martha's Vineyard. Boston wasn't exactly nearby for her. "Rob still hasn't come home yet." "Great," I said. "That's perfect. We can just catch up and chat." She replied, "This place does look a bit old-fashioned, doesn't it? Maybe after the press conference, you'll have some money to give it a fresh makeover." Of course, this penthouse was spotless, but in Beverly's eyes, who knew nothing about my inheritance, we'd never measure up. "We're perfectly comfortable here," I said, pouring her a glass of wine. I lied and claimed it was cheap stuff I'd picked up at the local market, when in reality, it was quite pricey. As long as you're comfortable, that's all that matters. But when I was your age, I'd already given Charles 3 kids. You know, Rob isn't exactly young either." As she talked about suitable marriages, Beverly kept swirling the red wine in her glass. "Yesterday, I ran into Clara Jennings at the club. She comes from an absolutely fabulous background. Her dad's in biotech, and she's from one of those old, established aristocratic families. Only a background like this could truly match Rob's ambitions," I said. My wine glass began to tremble in my hand. "She seems like a nice person," I remarked. "Nice? Honey, she's absolutely perfect," Beverly replied. "She graduated from Harvard Medical School and has published research papers, too. It's women like her who can really understand what Rob does. Not that you're not trying hard enough. It's just that some things really do require a certain level of refinement and insight to grasp." After she left, as I was cleaning the kitchen, I found Rob's gym bag tucked away in a corner. Beneath his workout clothes lay a receipt from the Fairmont Hotel in Washington, D.C., a 2-night stay in the King Suite, dated precisely to the weekend he'd claimed he'd spent working late into the night at the lab. When Rob finally came home, I was still clutching that receipt. "How was your trip to Washington, D.C.?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" "I haven't been to Washington in months," he said as he walked past me, heading straight for the bedroom, completely oblivious that I was holding in my hand the very evidence of his betrayal. The next morning, I called in sick to my fictional freelance design project and then followed closely behind my husband. Around noon, I sat in a cafe across from the Federalist restaurant, a French bistro where Rob had once claimed he could never get a reservation. Through the window, I watched as he arrived first. A few minutes later, Clara showed up too. When he saw her, the smile that lit up his face made my chest tighten suddenly. He rose to greet her, his hand lingering for a long moment on the small of her back. Without even being asked, the waiter brought over a bottle of champagne. Clearly, this place was their old haunt, a regular spot they'd been coming to every Tuesday. She threw her head back and laughed heartily at something he said, and the way he looked at her? That look was all too familiar, just like the way he used to gaze at me during our dating days. As they were leaving, Rob gently helped her put on her coat. I could no longer hold back, and turned away. I drove over to Chloe's place. "There's something I have to tell you," she suddenly said. 3 weeks ago, I was downtown and saw Rob trying on a ring, a wedding ring, with a blonde woman at Winston's Jewelry. It was Dr. Clara Jennings from Quantum Dynamics. Chloe gripped my hand tightly, her voice trembling. He was buying her a ring, and they looked so happy. I've been feeling guilty these past few weeks, afraid to say anything. In an instant, it all clicked. That Tuesday 3 weeks ago, he'd first had lunch with Clara at the Federalist restaurant before heading off to buy the engagement ring. Truly the epitome of romance. Later that night, after Rob had fallen fast asleep, I went into the kitchen, dimmed my computer screen, and started digging deeper. Soon enough, I discovered small sums of money being transferred weekly to unfamiliar accounts, each time with the note investment planning. This isn't an investment at all. It's his escape plan. He's actually siphoning off funds from the Concord Group, completely unaware that I'm even involved. At 3:30 a.m., another phone tucked inside his coat began to vibrate. He slipped out of bed as quietly as possible and made his way into the bathroom. Time is tight. Our press conference is on Thursday, and we've got just 2 days left to prepare, he whispered. Savannah doesn't suspect a thing. She's way too gullible. The divorce papers are already ready, and the lawyer says there's a prenuptial agreement in place. She'll only get some old jewelry and a few spare bucks from the design collection. She won't be getting a single thing else. As soon as the investors sign everything, I'll lay it all out for her first thing Thursday morning. I love you too. Just 2 more days, and we'll finally be able to stop hiding, he said before returning to bed. But I couldn't sleep a wink that night. Deep down, I'd already made up my mind about what I had to do. The days ahead felt unusually long. Like an actor playing one last time the role of the perfect wife, I forced myself to smile and play along with him, putting on a brave face. Thursday finally arrived, and the air was thick with moisture. In the afternoon, I went to Senator Pierce's office to sign some documents and freeze certain anonymous investments, especially those funds that had been flowing into quantum dynamics. At 6 o'clock in the evening, standing in front of the mirror in my bedroom, I zipped up the sapphire blue dress Rob had picked out for me. The fabric clung to my body, feeling almost like armor. In my bag, next to the speech I'd written weeks ago, lay a brand new draft I'd just prepared that morning. Driving through Boston's traffic, I reached Quantum Dynamics in just a few minutes. The building's glass facade reflected the lingering glow of the setting sun. Tonight, I was no longer merely his wife. The elevator ride to the top floor had never felt so long. The moment the elevator doors opened, I felt both fragile and exposed, and yet, strangely, brimming with strength. The executive floor lobby buzzed with the pre-event energy. Catering staff were arranging exquisite dishes, but I didn't head straight toward the banquet hall. I walked up to Rob's office door and, peering through the crack, once again heard his casual, dismissive voice. She'll be here any minute now, wearing that blue dress I bought her, playing the perfect wife. God, when she first got that dress, she was so grateful you'd think I'd given her diamonds instead of a cheap knockoff from Saks Fifth Avenue. Clara's laughter was as sharp and jarring as fingernails scraping against glass. She really has no idea about us at all. They sat down again on that leather sofa, and the ring on the 4th finger of her left hand sparkled softly in the light of the desk lamp. Once we're done talking to her about the divorce tomorrow, we'll never have to hide again, Rob went on. The prenuptial agreement will protect all my assets. She'll only get what she brought into the marriage, which basically means she'll end up with nothing at all. He'd been carefully guarding against the so-called gold-digging women, yet he'd never once considered that he himself was the one plotting something sinister. I stepped back from the doorway and made my way into the executive restroom. Then I called Senator Pierce. Execute all the asset transfers we've discussed right now. Are you sure? Once it's done, there's no turning back. I'm sure. Next, I dialed the security firm I'd contacted earlier that week, the Blackwater Security Group. This is Savannah Wells. I need your team to arrive at Quantum Dynamics within the hour. Deploy discreetly, but be ready to step in as soon as I give the signal. I touched up my lipstick, gave my sapphire blue dress a final tweak, and then headed toward the ballroom. This time, I walked in as Savannah Wells, the heiress to a pharmaceutical empire, about to reclaim her rightful power in the most public way possible. The doors to the banquet hall were open, and the room was packed with investors, board members, and journalists. Rob stood on the podium, confidently scanning the audience below. He was dressed in a custom-made Hugo Boss suit. On the large screen behind him, the Quantum Dynamics logo flashed brightly. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob began, Quantum Dynamics is poised to revolutionize gene therapy once and for all. The room erupted into applause. I noticed Clara standing just off stage, watching closely, ready to seize her moment. Rob continued his speech, outlining the company's promising future. Before we move on to our technical demonstration, Rob said, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank someone very special, my wife, Savannah. She's been my rock throughout this entire journey. Honey, could you come up here for a moment? I made my way toward the stage, and Rob pulled me close, planting a kiss on my cheek right in front of the cameras. Is she perfect? He said into the microphone. Without her, there'd be no me today. Actually, I interrupted him, my voice ringing clearly throughout the room. There's something I'd like to share with all of you as well. I gently slipped out of his embrace and took the microphone from him. Thank you all for coming tonight. Rob's right. Over the past 6 years, I've been right by his side, supporting his dreams. But what he doesn't realize is just how much support I've actually provided. You see, for the past 6 years, Rob has had an anonymous investor, a person who believed in his vision when banks refused to give him a single penny in loans, a person who poured millions of dollars into his venture. This investor saved Quantum Dynamics from bankruptcy 3 times. In fact, time and again, never once abandoning him. And this investor, I said now, staring directly at Rob, each word deliberate and clear, is none other than me. Savannah Wells, the sole heir of Concord Group and the innocent woman you were cuddling on the office couch this afternoon while holding Dr. Clara Jennings close, Rob said. His mouth opened and closed repeatedly, his shock rendering him speechless. He reached out as if to snatch the microphone from my hand, but I took a step back instead. This is absolutely absurd, he finally managed to stammer. Savannah, what on earth are you doing? I pulled out my phone and connected it to the presentation system. Instantly, the screen displayed bank transfer records, clear evidence that funds had flowed from Concord Holdings into Quantum Dynamics. Every single round of major financing, I said, every emergency infusion of capital, every transitional loan used to keep the company afloat. All of it came from Concord Group, my money. The screen then switched automatically to documents proving my status as the rightful heir. But that's not even the most exciting part, I continued. I've also uncovered some intriguing financial irregularities. It seems someone has been siphoning funds from Quantum Dynamics' operating account into personal accounts. Someone else has been recording personal expenses as corporate costs, and yet another person has been engaging in activities that, I'm sure, the FBI would label embezzlement and fraud. The screen was flooded with the evidence I'd gathered. I've already submitted this information to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Massachusetts, I announced to the roomful of investors. I imagine they'll be very curious to find out exactly where their money has gone. As the elevator descended in silence, I caught a glimpse through the slowly closing doors. The board members had gathered around Rob, their faces suffused with anger. Before we even reached the parking lot, my phone began to vibrate. Rob's name kept popping up on the screen, followed by one urgent call after another. You have no idea what you've just destroyed. Answer the phone right now. I'd set my phone to silent. A few minutes later, I drove back to our penthouse apartment and called Senator Pierce. Submit the divorce papers first thing tomorrow morning and immediately freeze all joint assets. It's already being handled. The prenuptial agreement Rob insisted on signing? It's actually incredibly favorable to you. It protects all your premarital assets and inheritance. He's essentially handed himself a one-way ticket out of Concord Group's wealth, yet he has no clue about it. When I returned to the apartment, I found that the door lock had already been changed. I calmly began packing up my belongings, taking only what was mine, Grandma's Lamo's porcelain, photo albums, and the jewelry I'd been hiding away all along. Everything else, the furniture, the artwork, the gifts he'd given me, I left behind. Chloe rushed over with the boxes, ready to help. She said softly, I'm so proud of you. I feel completely numb, I admitted. Rob's messages had changed again. This time, they were all threats. Because of your little drama, the FBI is seizing our accounts. My lawyer will ruin you utterly. By 2 a.m., we'd finally managed to load all my belongings into the car. I placed the keys on the granite countertop, next to the wedding ring I'd taken off in the elevator. There was no note, no explanation. I drove for several hours to the coastal paradise estate on Martha's Vineyard, a place my father had left behind, a place I'd never actually lived in. As Chloe helped me carry the boxes, she couldn't help but marvel. You've got such a huge estate, yet you've always been willing to go out of your way to serve ordinary people. All I ever wanted was to be loved for who I am, not for my wealth, I said with a bitter smile. But look where it's gotten me. We found a bottle of vintage champagne in the wine cellar and shared it from simple paper cups. Soon after, Pierce called to tell me that federal agents had raided Quantum Dynamics, seizing documents and questioning Rob and Clara. The evidence I provided was compelling. Already, 3 investors have filed lawsuits against Rob. The prenuptial agreement simply couldn't protect him anymore. I turned on the TV in my study, and every business channel was covering the story. The scrolling news headlines read, Concord heirs press conference exposes husband's fraud. Analysts predicted that without Concord's funding, the source of 70% of its capital, Quantum Dynamics, was now worthless. At sunrise, Chloe came looking for me. I confess that right then, all I felt was freedom. She showed me the news feed. In the video, Rob was being led away in handcuffs, his expression utterly desperate. Clara, too, had been taken into custody, her composure completely shattered. Then Pierce called again, saying the investigation had expanded further and revealed that Clara had been secretly selling the company's proprietary research to competitors for a long time. Quantum Dynamics swiftly filed for bankruptcy liquidation, and Pierce arranged for Concord Group to bid $10 million for its patent portfolio. I specifically requested that the research team be retained. A few days later, Beverly showed up unannounced, begging me to help Rob, claiming he was her only child. He chose his own fate. There's nothing I can do to help him, I said firmly. Still, I promised to safeguard the personal trust fund left by her late husband, ensuring she'd have a worry-free retirement. Several weeks later, I experienced my final sense of satisfaction. I personally oversaw the renovation of the executive floor at Quantum Dynamics. His office, the corner suite where I'd heard him call me naive, was being transformed into a storage room. What should we do with this? The foreman asked, holding up our wedding photo frame. Throw it away, I replied without hesitation. Through the window, I watched as the workers tossed the leather sofa from the upper floor, sending it crashing down into the industrial dumpster below. 6 years of marriage, eventually reduced to nothing but trash. Just as I was signing the final renovation documents, my phone vibrated, and I received a text message from an unknown number. Ms. Wells, this is Dr. Patricia Kim from the research team. Thank you for saving our jobs and our research findings. We won't let you down. Several months have passed, and Coast Paradise Estate has become my home. I've received an invitation to speak at the Global Pharmaceutical Innovation Summit. Rob had planned to announce his major breakthrough from this very stage. But now it'll be me standing here instead. I stood in front of the mirror, my Winston watch gleaming on my wrist. The person reflected in the mirror, this person I'm still slowly getting to know again. I spoke aloud. Good morning. A few months ago, many of you witnessed firsthand what happens when ambition loses its moral compass. Today, I'd like to show you everything we've built on the foundation of integrity. My talk outlined Concord Group's transformation. We've demonstrated that ethical business practices aren't just morally right, they're also more profitable. When researchers no longer have to live in fear, their innovative capacity is greatly enhanced. Chloe stood off to the side of the stage. She's now my Senior Director of Biotechnology Integration. A few hours after the talk ended, as I was heading toward my car, I spotted him just a few blocks away, standing at the entrance to the federal courthouse. Rob was there with his lawyer. This morning, he'd just been sentenced, 5 years in prison, to be served in a minimum security facility. He and I locked eyes at the same moment, and for an instant, we both froze. Then, breaking free from his lawyer's grip, he started walking toward me. Savannah, you've ruined everything for me. No, I replied calmly. I've simply brought the whole truth to light. These two are worlds apart. You're so naive, he said, repeating the very words that had set it all in motion. You actually believed in love. You're right about one thing. My voice was as firm as granite. I used to be naive, but naivety can be healed through experience. As for what you've got, selfishness and cruelty, they're beyond any cure. His lawyer forcibly dragged him away. That evening, I sat in my father's study, watching the sunset paint the sea red. In my hand was a letter he'd left behind among the estate's papers, which read, "True wealth isn't what you inherit. It's who you become in times of adversity. Money may be lost, stolen, or squandered, but the character you forge through trials and triumphs, that's the wealth that will always belong to you." The next day, the research team would present their latest findings. The Concord Group has become even greater, not only more profitable, but also imbued with a sense of purpose. If this carefully crafted revenge story has you on the edge of your seat, sweating palms and all, be sure to hit that like button right away. My favorite part? The moment Savannah Wells reveals her identity as the heir to the Concord Group at the press conference. Watching Robert Vance turn deathly pale as he finally realizes that the wife he'd always dismissed as naive was actually the one who'd been secretly funding his dreams all along. Which jaw-dropping moment was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Don't miss out on more thrilling stories like this. Be sure to subscribe.